Okay, so good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, all. Welcome to the first meetup of 2022 for the Hyderabad Power Apps and Power Automate user group. Today, we have two sessions as part of our agenda today. The first one is by Clavin Fernandes, and the session is about sprinkle code in a custom connector. After that, we have another session which I am going to present, and that is about how to build a custom user interface in the Canvas apps. Okay, so with that, let me introduce Clavin first, and then I'll hand it over to him so that he can start with the session. So, Clavin is a Microsoft MVP for business applications, and he's also a super user for Power Automate forum. With that, thank you, Clavin, for joining us today and sharing this newly released topic with all of us. So,
First of all, thank you for inviting me and thank you for having me here. So let's go ahead and start the session. So, hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to Hyderabad Power Apps and Power Automate user group. Today's session is about sprinkling a little bit of code in custom connector. My name is Clavin. Ritika already went ahead and introduced me. So this is a repeat. I'm a Microsoft Business MVP, a cloud consultant at Rapid Circle, a technical evangelist for Mohimbi products, and a Power Automate super user. I love to share my knowledge, whatever that I learn, on my blog. That's clavinfernandes.wordpress.com. I have also recently launched my own YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and type in CLA, not Calvin, CLAVINFERNANDES, you will go ahead and find my channel out there. There I share my learnings as well. Other than that, I also actively communicate in the Power Automate community. So my social handles are at the right hand of the screen. You can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, etc. Feel free to connect with me. So now, what is the agenda for today? First, we'll go ahead and see basics of custom connector. Okay, we'll go ahead and set up the basic example. Now, this particular session is more targeted towards power users and developers who can go ahead and help power users, right? If you see, it involves a little bit of C# code. So we go ahead and see how we can define the swagger, which is going to be the UI. Then
um,
we'll go ahead.
Clevin,
Can you hear
sorry
me?
to. Yes, I can hear you. Sorry to interrupt, but there is like a little bit of fluctuation in your audio. Can you please try to adjust it once?
Can you hear me now?
No, I mean, it's still a little bit fluctuating.
Let me try again.
Um, can you try?
Now,
I mean, it's still the same. Are you using any headphones or something?
yes, I'm using a headphone. So let me
Okay.
try. It's still not
Yeah,
good.
I mean,
Okay.
yep.
I reconnected my headphone. Is it still bad?
Mm,
Hello.
yes, Clevin. So, I mean, it's still, a little bit like it's
Uh,
fluctuating. Yeah,
okay. Yash, is it for everyone? Yash, can you also confirm? Because
and now I think it went well.
It's better now, but earlier it was like a little bit, you were breaking in the between. But yeah, continue. I
okay.
think it's good.
I
Yep,
will
now it's
talk
good.
a little bit slow as well. I have an habit of talking a little bit fast. So let's get back to the slide. So
Okay.
second, what we are going to do is we are going to define a swagger. Finally, we are going ahead and processing our request using C# code. And finally, we'll go ahead and see the limitations of custom code connector. So without wasting any further time, let me get into the demo. Okay, so let me go into my Power Automate. So first and foremost, what are we going to create? First, the basics, right? I told you. First, we are going to create a very simple connector, which is going to go ahead and in which you can enter a person's name. The person's name will be concatenated with hello, and it will come as the output. Now you'll say, Clavin, why are you doing this? Because you can use simple Power Automate, right? Yes, indeed. You can use simple Power Automate, but as I told you, first we will understand the basics. That is how to create this particular structure or the action, and then how to go ahead and get the output something like hello Clavin Fernandes. So let's get into the data tab and let's start building our custom connector. So those who have been working with Power Automate might have come to this screen, or with Power Apps might have come to this screen. Now, first question that I would like to ask, why do you create a custom connector? You create a custom connector only if something is not possible out of the box, right? You don't simply create a custom connector for an action which is already available. Or you don't simply, or why do you create it? For example, you have a graph API which you actively use, which you use always, and you want to go ahead and give your power users the ability to go ahead and create their own flows rather than getting into the complexity of graph API. That is when you go ahead and create a custom connector. So first things first, I can create a custom connector. I can create it from blank. I can create it from an Azure app service, an open API, from a URL, from a Postman collection, and a GitHub. For this particular demo, I'm going to go ahead and create from blank. So I'll give my custom connector a name. So I'll say hello, greet. I'll click on continue. So on this screen, this is the general information. First thing that it needs, it's an icon. So I'll give my photo in here. So let's consider that this is the icon. Next, what I can do is that I need to give it a description. Remember, describing everything will go ahead and help others understand what your connector does. So give it a good little description. I'll say hello user example. Then it's HTTPS. And in our case, the host does not matter a lot because we are not going to go ahead and leave the context of Power Automate. Okay. I'll just put in Clavin.test. So Ritika, Yash, is it still good? Is the audio good or is it still breaking?
It's good, Clevin. I mean, I think it
Okay,
was just for the first few minutes, but after that, it is good now.
perfect. I thought the demo gods are not happy with me, so I needed to confirm it. So good to
No,
know that things are good. So
yep.
let's get back to the demo. So second tab is the security tab. Now, as I told you, uh, our particular connector is not going to leave Power Automate. So security is not much of a concern for us. But if you're going ahead and invoking a third-party service, for example, you have written an Azure functions, right? There's a lot of talk about Fusion development as well on the internet. So where you go ahead and write your code in the function and then you go ahead and export the Swagger and then use it in your Power Automate. If you're doing that, yes, you need to have an authentication. With Azure Functions, you use the function key, so it's going to be API key. But yes, you have other options as well, such as basic and OAuth2. In our case, we don't need this as of now. Okay, so we'll click on no authentication. Next, the definition. You saw the action, right? How did we create the action? We created it using Swagger. Now, this particular thing that you see out here is used to define a Swagger structure. Now, people who are not very familiar with Swagger, what is Swagger? Swagger is used to go ahead and define your APIs or document your APIs, right? So we'll come back to Swagger, but before that, I want to show you where the real magic happens. The real magic happens in tab number 4, that is code. This is where you write your code, and this is where you go ahead and create magic. Okay, that's what I can say. And finally, it's the test tab. But before going ahead, we need to understand the definition. So let me show you the basic structure of Swagger. So this is the basic structure of Swagger. I'll just mute myself because I'll have a sip of water. So bear with me. So this is how a basic structure of Swagger looks like. First, you have an Open API number or Open API 3.0.0. In our case, it will be Swagger 2.0. Then you have the info. Then you have the servers, right? Where it's going to go ahead and hit our external API. Now, in our case, we don't have servers. So if I go back to this pane and if I click on Swagger Editor, here you see the basic structure. Sorry, I've got a little cough, so no corona though. So here you see our Swagger. The version number of Swagger is 2.0. Remember, 2.0 Swagger is supported in Power Apps and Power Automate. Then you have the info, similar to here. Then you have all these things. The main thing that we are interested in is the paths, right? If you look at the basic structure, it shows the paths. Sorry. So in the path, bear with me, okay? I'm just coughing a little. So here you see there is paths, and under the paths, the first thing that comes out is the endpoint. Okay, so users is the endpoint. Remember, for every Swagger, you need to go ahead and specify an endpoint. So what next? Next would be the method. So the methods are get, post, patch, etc. Okay. Then you can define a summary, a response. Under the response, you'll have a status code. Now you can go ahead and define a status code, or you can directly pass out, or you can respond using the schema. In this case, it's an array. Now you can type this by hand, but if you're a power user, you might want to go ahead and use this particular UI. So I'll click on actions and I'll fill in a summary. I'll just put in, so this is the action. So I need to put name of the person, description. This is enter your name. The operation ID, I'll just put it greet. Now the visibility. The visibility is something that goes ahead and helps you display in your action. So if you set the display to important, it will always go ahead and display. If you set it to advanced, so there'll be a link like this, and under that, the actions will be visible. If you set it to internal, it's hidden, but from the end users. So in our case, we leave it to none. That's perfectly fine. Next, we need to send a request, right? We need to create an action. So here, I can just put in something like test.net. And here, I will define a request. In our case, it's name of person. Bear with me. It's so it's telling me that the body is not valid. So just bear with me. I'll just see why the body is not valid. Yeah, I did not put the method. Wow, and I was searching everywhere. So the body is valid now, and I can click on import. So the body is valid now, and if you get into the body, and if I click on edit, here you see that I have something known as name of person, and the validation has succeeded. So you have a request defined. Now you need to also define a response, right? Now response is greetings. So I'll define a response and I'll say import. So that's pretty much it. You have defined your Swagger. So here, if you see, first we have post, then we have responses, you have default, you have your operation ID, and you have the entire structure ready out here. So next, let's go into the code. So here, I'll get into the code. I'll say enable the code, and I'll click on greet, right? So this is where the magic actually happens. So if I open a new tab, and if we go to the official documentation out here, here you see that how you can go ahead and write a custom code. So here I'm going to copy some lines of code. We'll come back and we'll go ahead and review them. So first thing, I'll copy this line. Okay. Don't worry, we are going to go ahead. I'm going to explain everything. But as of now, let's just copy the line of code. So I've copied this. And what is, so first things first, we are going ahead and getting the context, the request, the content, and then, so the request body is coming in. So name of person, and we are going ahead and storing it in a variable known as content as string. After that, what we are going ahead and doing is that we are passing the JSON object. So here I'm going ahead and passing this here and then going ahead and passing it and storing here. Finally, I need to tell them what is needed to pass. So I'll go back here, and if you see, I need to pass this name of person. So I'll copy this. Okay, okay, don't go away. I'm trying to drag it. I'll copy it. I'll go back to my code pane and I'll paste it here, right? So once I have gone ahead and now I have the name of person in name of person variable, right? So it's here. Now what I want to do, I want to get deleted. So again, going back to the article, by the way, a huge kudo to who has written the article and who is going ahead and maintaining it. Okay, so I just paste this in. So what are we going ahead and returning? We are going ahead and returning greetings, right? If I go to the Swagger, what's the response? Is greetings. So I'll go to the code editor. I'll say greetings, name of person, right? And I need to add hello. So I'll put the string real quick. Okay, hello. So here, now once you have this, you need to pass this back to the connector. So what I say, output dot to string. So that's pretty much it. Now I can just click on create custom connector. Right, but this takes a little bit of time, and in the meantime, we'll review this article. As I told you, this is an excellent article, and you should use it. So first things first, you need to write your code within the script class and within the script base class. There are a few supporting classes that you can use. One is the context. The second, we already use the context to get a response. Then we can use the operation ID as well. If you see the sample which is below the regular expression, it has operation ID. So we'll go ahead and look at it. And here you have few samples. The first sample is hello world sample, right? It goes ahead and returns hello world. Next is the regular expression example. As I told you, they are using operation ID to go ahead and check what is the operation ID that you have defined in the Swagger. Uh, so in their Swagger, they had defined regex is match. So they are comparing it. If it's that, then go ahead and execute this line of code, which is calling the method below, right? And as I told you, content, context, and response is used to get the whole JSON body. So if you're passing in three variables, then you're going to three parameters. If I go ahead and reword myself, you're going to get the whole chunk back. And after that, you need to parse it and get individual elements out of it by using this particular line of code. Finally, you're sending the response back as a JSON, J object, and you're passing it as a string. So this failed. And why did it fail? I have some error. So this tells me that it failed. And what is the error? So it expects semicolon. So just wait. Let me go back here. And the semicolon that's missing is here. My bad. So be careful while copy pasting content as well. Right? So I just copy pasted content. But if you see, it's so easy to go ahead and write a custom code connector. This is just a hello world example. Later on, I'm going to go ahead and set up an example, which is a real life example that I came across and helped one of the customer. Now, in addition to that, while this is getting saved, what you can do is that first things first, you need to understand what exactly is the need of the customer. Secondly, when do you use a custom code connector? You don't use a custom code connector for very complex things, right? While this is getting saved, I'm just going ahead and telling you the limitations. Let me put this on another screen so that I can go ahead and look at it in between. So first things first, as I told you, here you see, you don't use the custom code connector to do a lot of things. First thing, 5 seconds should be the total execution time, and it should not be more than 1 MB. Second thing, only these classes are supported or the namespaces are supported. You have to work with this. So if you have a third party namespace, you cannot go ahead and use it. So finally, how do I know that my code is going to execute within 5 seconds? I create a console app, play it and see, okay, it executes within 5 seconds. So this might go ahead and work. So this has saved. I'll just come back here and I'll go to the test pane. I'll create a new connection and I'll pass it Clavin Fernandes. Okay. So it failed the first time, but second time it goes ahead and succeeds. I have seen this always. It fails the first time, you will get tensed, but then you try the second time, it goes ahead and succeeds. So let me go ahead and create a duplicate of this tab and let me go ahead and create a flow. So an instant flow, manual flow, create. New step, custom. Now my photo. So I know that this is the connector. I'll just click on it. I'll say Davin. So Davin is my baby's name. So I'll just put it in. We'll greet him. Then I'll put in compose. And then I will put in greeting. So if you see, it returns the whole body or it just returns the greeting. So we have explicitly told the connector to go ahead and return us greetings. So I'll save it and I'll manually test it. So my flow is ready and my flow ran, and in the output, I should have hello Davin Fernandes. So here, my friends, you have gone ahead and created your own custom connector, right? You have understood how to define a swagger. Second thing, you have understood how to go ahead and pass data into the code and send a response using the J object. Yes. So now it's up to you. You can go ahead and use this, perhaps do some magic here, and then impress some people, even if you are not a developer. Now, that being said, let's go to a real life example, right? So I was talking to one of a customer, and the customer told me, Clavin, I want to convert XML to PDF. And I was like, XML to PDF? Is he crazy? Like, XML is like contains data, but not for visualization, right? We go ahead and use it in a SOAP request, etc. But then when Googling on the internet, I found that there's something known as Xslt, which is used to transform the XML into HTML or other formats. So I was like, I went back to the customer and told him, yeah, it is possible. We can create an Azure function, send a request, process the data, send it back, and then convert to PDF using Mohimbi connector. So he was like, Clavin, why are you going ahead and increasing my cost? And we don't have an Azure. And it's very difficult to go ahead and convince the business. And this is going to be a one time activity. It's not going to happen always. So now I again went to the internet and I started my research. I stumbled across this article and I started building my solution. So let's build it together real quick. So create from blank, I'll say XML to HTML. I'll give this image and I'll directly, what I'll do is that I'll not waste time. I'll paste in. So this particular sample is available on GitHub. I'll share the links with you as well. Okay. So I'll first go ahead and paste the Swagger. Don't worry, I'm going to explain you what it does. And in fact, I have another full video tutorial around this, so you can go ahead and look at it. This particular thing, I actually wrote the Swagger by hand, okay? So you can go ahead, if you're trying to write it by hand, you can go ahead and follow that tutorial later. So here you see, I'm creating a path that is the endpoint, the post request, and then the response. The response is giving back the whole body. I'm not going ahead and parsing it or doing something. Right after that, I'm going ahead and passing in parameters. The parameters, I have defined two parameters, input XML and an Xslt string. And that's going to go ahead and transform our XML to HTML. Now, let's consider I'm not a developer, right? So I go ahead and Google it. I want code. So I said XML to HTML C sharp. And I go to the second link because my each and every developer will relate to it. Stack Overflow gives you half of the answers, right? And I see there is a code which can do it. I take the code, I go back here, I go to the code preview, click on enable code, right? And I simply go ahead, come on, and paste this in. So here you see, I'm going ahead and passing XSLT string and an input, right? So this is what my code does. Now we need to go ahead and transform the request and send it back, right? So let me first check. So sorry, I'm coughing for some reason. I don't know why. I had no cough before this particular session. What I'll do is that I'll return the response. So I'll return the result. If you see the result dot to string. Now I'm returning the whole body, so I need to say new string content. Okay. So now this is good. I try to create my connector. So it gives me an error, right? If I copy this error and put it on a notepad, you see it tells me that a namespace is missing. I copy this namespace, go back to Google and paste it. I see this namespace is a part of system.xml. So I'll copy this and paste it in here. So if I click on create connector, and if I go back here, you see it supports system.xml. And this particular class is actually a part of this namespace. Okay, I missed the very important bit. I did not go ahead and get the values back. So let me just paste those in. So you know how to do this. We did it in the first sample. And I'll update my Swagger. So while I was coughing, I missed few things. So sorry for that. But yeah, if you see, this particular thing actually gives us some sort of errors which can help us. If you make sense of the error, you can go ahead and fix your code here itself. You don't need a Visual Studio. However, if you go to this particular documentation while that's saving, it's a very genuine question. How can I debug my code? So currently that's not supported, but hopefully Microsoft will go ahead and add it in the future. Okay. So our custom code is created, or a custom code connector has been created. If I go to test, if I create a new connection, and let me hunt for XML. So bear with me. So sample XML, if I can get sample XML, I'm just trying to Google. So I have a link from where I can copy a sample XML. Okay, so bear with me. So our XML file looks like this, where it has name, branch, and student. So I'll put in this. Now we also need an Xslt. Now Xslt is a single template which you can go ahead and use for transforming hundreds of XML. So you can define an Xslt something like this, and I can click on test. As you know, it might fail the first time, so always try twice. And here, my friends, you have an HTML. Now, if I go back and try to create a new flow, I can do transformation within the context of flow as well. So custom. So the name of a connector was XML to HTML. So XML to HTML, first one. This is the action. It's creating the connection. Here I can put in the XSLT, right? I need the XML again. And this is what the customer needed. So then I type in Mohimbi. So it's giving back me an HTML. I'll pass the whole body. If you see, the body is the HTML. So that's it. I'll send this as an email. So mod admin. So sample ID. I'll just make this as we are getting HTML back. Let's try to just put the whole HTML in the body. Sample XML. And just put in the processed file content. I'll save this. Click on manual. and I'll click on done. So for some reason, if you take, it took a little bit time, but the response came back. And if I go back here to my Outlook, I should have an email, right? Sample HYD. The body has the HTML itself. So you have just transformed XML, which is not a format for printing, into HTML and then converted and archived it as PDF. So, yeah, my friends, this is something very interesting that I found out. You don't need Azure functions. You can run code within the context of Power Automate. Just sprinkle a little bit of code and do magic. So, I think that is pretty much it. And I'm extremely sorry because I was not expecting to cough, but for some reason, coughing just came in. And yeah, but I hope this session was informative. And thank you, Yash. Thank you, Ritika, for having me here. Any
Thank you. Thank you, Clevin. This was super good, and I hope you feel better. We do have a couple of questions on the chat, so shall I read
Mhm.
it to you? Okay.
Sure thing.
Yeah, so the first one is when we move custom connector from one environment to another, it asks for OAuth credentials again. Is this
Mhm.
something we can avoid using the code preview?
So this is, as I told you, it's like if they're building a custom code connector, which is going ahead and running it in Azure, and if there is
Mhm,
some security defined, so this will not work. In this case,
mhm,
I would prefer building, and this is in preview, right? So
mhm.
you need to write your Swagger, like you need to create your Swagger by the basics that I showed you, and then go ahead and wire up code to the operation ID. Now, what he's trying to tell is that one more thing to understand here, when you go ahead and run the script, you can only run it, you can go ahead and apply it to all, or just go ahead and associate it with an operation ID. A point to remember, you can write only one script per connector, right? So I don't think what he's trying to tell is actually a use case for this particular example.
Okay. Thank you, Clevin and Rick. I hope that answers your question.
She can connect with me if she has questions over LinkedIn.
Yes. Okay. So, Rick, I have added Clevin's social media URLs on the chat. So, if you want to connect with him later, please feel free to do so. And then we have one other question. So,
Mhm.
it says, this is looking very cool since this is in preview. Any key points to remember before using this approach?
It's in preview, so go ahead and test it, and then give it to the customer. I would say wait till it's in general availability. It's still in preview. I used it only for a bulk operation, one-time operation for the customer, and it worked, right? So there was no dependency. Like if it fails, like everything goes for a toss. It was a one-time archival process, and it worked for them. And I found this very interesting. So you can go ahead and use that.
Mhm. Okay. I hope that
I
answers your.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't know when it's going to come out of preview. So that's one thing, but I'll surely ask Microsoft about it.
Ah, okay. So, Shehbaz, if you still have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Clevin. He'll be able to help you with, anything related to this cool feature of code and custom connectors.
Yes, and finally, this is my YouTube channel where I have went ahead and demonstrated. Unfortunately, the first thing came is the ad, but yeah, this is my YouTube channel where I have demonstrated the final thing that we did, right? That is using XML. So understand, first thing I showed you the basics. Basics is very important. And then this is the XML thing that I did. I did not go ahead and type everything because I have done it here. And it would be another 15 minutes, which would be a repeat.
Okay, so Clevin, if you want to paste this video URL in the chat, I'll share it with everyone.
Okay, I'll share it in the chat. I just shared it.
Yes,
There's a
definitely.
GitHub link, and there's also a link. There's a GitHub link and the link to my blog where I have documented this as well.
Okay. So I've added it for everyone, the
Mhm.
URL. So if there is any other link, please feel free to share and we'll add it on the chat.
Perfect. And always look at this documentation. If you are a power user, if you're a developer, you don't need it. But yeah, as I showed you, just using this particular article, you don't have to go ahead and search here, there. this exactly tells you how to get the data, how to send the data back, how to process it. Is something that you'll write code by Googling or finding it on the internet, as I did for the XML.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Clavin. Thank you so much. This was really good. I mean, I learned something new today. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, you're welcome, and thank you for having me here again. And I'm extremely sorry because of, I don't know, I was coughing. I'm still, my throat is itching for some reason. So, anyways, thank you guys. Thank you for having me here, and I'll go on mute, and you can take over for your
Okay.
session.
Thank you, Clavin. Okay, so with that, this was our first session for the day, which was about sprinkling some code in a custom connector and explore what are the different possibilities of using a custom connector to make calls or make different operations while you're making the request. Now, next up, we have another session which is about how you can build a custom user interface inside of Canvas app, and I'm going to present that. So first, let me share my screen. Okay. So this is my session, and here I'm going to talk about the different things you can take care of or you can include while you're building a Canvas app. Because design or the user experience inside your Canvas app is one of the most important things. So we'll see a few tips and tricks and what things to keep in mind while you're working on a Canvas application. So, first, I'll share a little bit about myself and then we will start. So, I am Ritika Agarwal. I work as a Power Platform consultant. Apart from this, I am the user group leader for Hyderabad Power Platform user group. If you would like to connect with me on LinkedIn, Twitter, or if you want to connect with me on email, I have my social media handles shared on the screen. I do have a personal blog which is agarwalritika.com. Here, I like to write about my learnings on Power Platform, and if there is something which can help you, we can definitely check this out. I am also a Microsoft MVP and MCT for business applications. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me anytime. With that, let's get started. So, Canvas app designing. Why is it required? Now, if you are familiar with Canvas app, you may know this already, but for someone who has not much experience with Canvas app, or they are just trying to learn or understand what are the different aspects of Power Platform, so Canvas app is one of them. It is the kind of application you build, and here you have full control of how your app is going to look. So I can control what is the design of my application, what colors I want to use, what controls I want to use, where am I going to place it, etc. Now, Power Platform is a low code, no code platform where you can build apps by dragging and dropping controls. But when we talk about building a full functional application, yes, we can drag and drop controls. But how will I build the user experience in a way where it looks compact or it is intuitive for my users? Because if I am developing or if I'm building a screen which is not usable by my users properly, or it's not doing the whole functionality, there's no point of building it. So the design side of a Canvas app, it's very, very important. There are three ways in which you can start building a Canvas app. The first one is you can use any of the existing templates, and that is a very good way to start with. If there is a template that exists in the same lines as your use case, you can go ahead and use the template. Another way is for starting with a data source. It's more like a template app, and it's a very simple application, yet it is very intuitive if you want to interact with just the data. You're not concerned much about the user experience, but you want to be able to control your data source. It can be SharePoint, Dataverse, Excel sheet, anything directly from a mobile application. But the third way, which is most used, that is from blank. And when you're building an application from blank, it's up to you how you want to build it. Because when you go into that editor, all you get is a blank white screen. Now I know I can drag and drop controls on the screen, but how will they be all together on the screen? How will they make the complete user experience? If I'm saying I want to create a form for my users where they can fill some information, and then when they click on a button, maybe a submit button, it gets saved to my data source. So I know that this is something I want to build, but when I'm dragging and dropping the control, is it something which will work on all screen sizes? Or if I am placing the controls, is there any overlap which is making my controls partially available? We'll talk about all these things in this session. And right now, what I am trying to convey is, because we are controlling the design, it is very important that it is intuitive for our users. And as a developer, there are a couple of ways to, you know, build your Canvas app in a way where it is intuitive and it is very useful for your users. So first we'll start with the very basic designing aspects. So those are themes and color properties. So theme, this is like, by default, your Canvas app editor, it has a list of predefined themes that you can select from. So you can select those themes, and then all the controls which you're going to add on the screen, they will be aligned with those color combinations. Usually when you're building a custom application, themes is good at until some uh, intent, but after that you might need to include your own colors. So that's where color properties comes into picture. Every control that you're going to add, it has its own color properties. Let's see what I mean by that. If I go to the view here and I want to start a new Canvas app, and rather than starting from blank, first, because I want to show you themes, we'll start from a database. I'll go with Dataverse and I'll create a connection. And I'll use the accounts table. So this is a application I am creating from data. It is going to be a template application which will present me with some screens. So I'm just waiting for my app to provision. And here, if you see, I have some data here, some information is getting displayed on my screens. And if I look at this home menu, I see theme option. So this is that predefined list of set I was mentioning earlier, where you can select any theme and your app, it will adjust its appearance on the basis of those colors. So now what I did was I just selected one theme, and see all the other screens, all the three screens on my app, they are um, added here in a way where I can see those colors. So this theme is a good way to apply, design or a different set of colors on screens. But here, one thing to remember is these are the only themes that are available. I cannot add my own theme here to this list. There are other ways in which I can add this type of consistency. We'll talk about those later. But from the out of the box themes capability, these are the only available options. Another thing is, if I go to inputs, there are some controls where the properties, they are only controlled by themes. So here I can control what this background color is going to be. So this one I can control, but when I click on the control, this color that is displaying, sorry about that, this color that is displaying, it is only controlled by the theme. So when you're working on a canvas app, you have to be very careful of which theme you select, because if you're using a date picker, the pop-up color is something you cannot change. So usually the preferred practice is you go with a light shade or a color which is similar to um, your color guidelines, because that way when you click on it, it will merge, or it will be aligned with those colors. So you can choose any of these and then you can start. Another thing was, and okay, just give me a second, I'll reopen this app, because the canvas, it was like half visible. So I'll save this app so that it saves my changes. Then I'll go back and I'll go to my apps and open this test app in edit mode. Okay, so here that was on the themes part. Now if I select a control like this background, which is showing this maroon color, here you see with every control there are properties like color property, hover property, pressed property, disabled color property. So if I want to change this, that change will be applicable only on the single control. So things I can control at the screen levels, I can control that with theme. But with my individual control, there will be different design property. Like this was a shape, so I get few options like disabled color, fill color, pressed color, hover fill. But if I go with a button, maybe I'm not sure if a button is added, so I'll add a new one. If I add a button control here, I get a few other design properties like text color, fill color, hover text color, hover, uh, sorry, pressed text color, fill color. So these are like different, I think, total 11 properties that are available to me for customizing this button. So now one thing is with themes, and then another one with the custom properties of each control. So when you want to build or when you want to include your own designs, this is something you can do. Next up we have is responsive design, and that is very important. I'll tell you a little bit on the background here. So when you are building any canvas app, it asks you for two options. One is a tablet view, second one is a mobile layout. So if most of your users are going to use your application on their tablets or on their desktops, you would go with a tablet form factor. Otherwise, if your app is going to be most used on mobile phones, you go with the mobile view. Now, whether you choose a tablet view or a mobile view, the app is going to be accessible on all devices. It's not like if I have built an application for mobile, it will not be opened in tablet. No, that is totally not true. Any app you build, it will be uh, available, or it will be available for use on any device that you can log in for Power Platform. So, what is the catch here? Why are we getting this option for tablet versus mobile view? Let's say when I build an application for mobile and I play it on a tablet device. So here, this is a mobile application. If I play it on the tablet device, I get some extra space on both left and right side, because my width of the app is smaller compared to the height of my application. Okay, and same, if I build an application for tablet and I try to open that on my mobile device, I'll have to tilt my phone in landscape mode so that I can easily access the wider width. So this is one of the adjustments you have to make if you are using the Canvas app and you're not making it responsive. Now, how do we make this responsive? So for that, first you'll have to go to settings in the editor. You can go to display and you can disable the scale to fit property. That will disable aspect ratio along with it. And now when I close it and I play this, see, this is something which is expanded on the whole screen, because now my app, it's not logged in a specific orientation, but it is it is going to adjust on the basis of device I use it on. So if I inspect it, see, this is adjusted. The button, I have not added any customization to it, so it will not be responsive. But if I try to open this on a mobile device or something, this will automatically adjust. So here, let's say, maybe, yeah, this is automatically adjusted. See, in a tablet view, if I go with iPhone, here it is like, I think the web browser simulator is not working fine because my screen goes towards the extreme left. But whatever device you open it on, it will adjust on the basis of its width and height. So here, if you see, my button was towards the extreme right, but when I play it, this goes to the left side. What can we do in this case? So here I can say, this button, it is going to be maybe here. So I want to put it on the extreme right side, wherever it is. What I can do here is, if you see, my control has different position properties like X, Y, width and height. Width and height is fine. I want to keep that same, but the X coordinate, because the X axis, it's going to be aligned with the right side. So what I can say here is my app dot width minus the controls width. So there is a property which is available in Canvas app self that gets you the details of current control. So now I added something like app's width minus the button's width. So this is to the right. Okay. Now if I play it on the mobile view, it was on the right, and even on my landscape view, it is on the right. The reason being, I added an expression which makes it responsive. Now, let's try one other thing. If I compare this view, this one, I don't think this much space is needed for a single account, because I can see most of its information on the left. The right part, or the, I would say, the 3/4 part of my screen, it's just complete wasted because none of the information is visible here. How can we adjust that in a way when I open it on a mobile, it shows me only one item, but when I switch it over to the landscape mode or the tablet mode, it shows me more items. So that is where there is a property on the gallery control, which is wrap count. I can say, and here I will say, if the app width is less than equals to 640. So I'm saying, if the width is less than equals to 640, then only show one item, otherwise show four items. Okay, what I mean by app dot width, this is going to get me the width of my application or my canvas where I am playing this app. I used 640 value here because for the mobile device, it is recognizing the width as 640. I can change this value if you are building, like an app for different screen sizes. I think the standard one is somewhere between 750 to 800, but you can check that value for the standard mobile screen size. Here, I see 640, that's why I'm using 640 directly. So if I play it on a mobile device, it is only showing me one item. Let's see how it changes on the tablet view. See, now I have 4 items on the screen. This is the same application, but it is adjusting on the basis of device I'm using it on. So 1 item versus 4 items on the basis of the device I'm using it on. So this is how you can make your app responsive. Now there can be other different aspects too. For example, maybe I'm using it on a screen which is having more height. This is a template app, so it is automatically responsive. But then if I open a new app, let's say I'll create a blank app, and I'll go to the this environment here, a canvas app, and I'll call it as responsive. I'll go with the phone view because this here we are talking about responsiveness, and I'm using a laptop. So the best way to demonstrate responsiveness is if I use a mobile application. Okay. So with that, let me insert any control here. I would go with the gallery because that way I can see multiple items. And here I'll expand it to the whole width, whole height, sorry. And in the data source, I'll select my accounts table because I want to enter some data here. Okay, nice. If I play it here, I can see that it is added automatically on my whole screen size. But what if I'm using it on a device where the height is more? Then maybe 1136. This is the height of the control I'm using, but what if my device height is more than that? In those cases, you can always go with app.height so that whatever is the size of your app, you're automatically adjusting on the basis of that screen size. This is one. Another one is when you are adding controls, always make sure, because when you work with responsiveness, at times you're going to write different expressions for x, y, width and height of the control. So let's say I added something, and then here maybe what I'll do, okay, I'll go back to this app. Here I'll show that example. Okay, I added a text input control so that I can record some value. So what I'll do is I'll make it a little bit smaller so that it gets adjusted properly. Okay. So this one I'll move a little bit up. Yeah, and then the text input. Okay. So here I have added an expression which shows one item here when this is fine. So if I say this one, I'll say, I was trying to make this responsive as well. And I say parent dot width minus 500, something like that. Or 500 is more, 300. Yeah, this is better. So I am adding this on the basis of my gallery's width. And this looks fine on a mobile device, by the way, because I have ample of space to use this text input control. Now, if I play this, see, this is not looking good on my mobile device. The reason is here the width of this control is set to the whole width of my app minus 300 pixels. But that is not working for my landscape device. Instead of parent.width, I should have selected template width because that is showing for a single item. So now see, this is good. This is showing me the width properly on the basis of the device I'm using it on. So when you are writing these expressions, make sure you're referencing right properties, because maybe it looks good on the editor here, but it may not look good when you play it on the different other screens. So this is about responsiveness. Then another one is when you're designing the user experience, try to play with icons and images. Now, if I go back to my editor here, with Power Apps or with Canvas App Studio, you get a number of options for using the icons. Okay, I can use that. I can add any of these icons that are available to me. But these are plain icons. What if I want a more graphical one? Or let's say I'll switch to this app so that we get a, you know, proper screen here. And I will say, here I want to add an icon. Okay, let's use this draw one. Things I can control here. I can control its color, its background color, its border color, etc. But I cannot make it more graphical. What if I want more icons inside my Canvas app? So, in that case, what I can do is I can download an image from Google. So, I would say icon, I'll just search for it, and maybe I'll get like this icon. So here I want to use this icon on my application. When you're selecting any icon, always go for the PNG ones because with that you don't get the background. So select a PNG file with no background so that it doesn't appear bad on your Canvas app. I'll download both of these. First, I'll save this image and then I'll save one without the this. I'm just looking for an image. Yeah, this is a good example. Or maybe because this is white, so okay, maybe this is a better. Yeah. So I'll save this image as well. So let's say I wanted to include both of these icons on my app. One was this person's icon, and then other one was this thumbs up. Now, when I add these icons, there is no background. I can select if I want to add any background, and that way it will be updated. But the number of options I have available here, it's very less. So what if I want something more? Then I can add it as an image. So here I'll upload two images, one this and one this, to see how they look different on the screen here. Okay, so this is my out of the box icon. Then I'll add this image and another as this one. So see, here it looks like an icon and a very nice one because it's showing me that shadow and it looks like a proper icon on my screen. This is intuitive for my users. Whereas this image where, okay, the icon is there, but then it comes with a background. So it does not look very good as an icon here. If I, try to make it smaller to be, just like an icon and I place it here, it won't look very good compared to this one, which is intuitive because whatever size I added, it is uh, in a state where we have no background. It will go with any color. Okay, if I have my screen background as maybe this gray color or a lighter shade, so that one blended in, now it looks good. This one is looking fine, but what if I have a different screen size or different screen color? In that case, this one doesn't look very good, but this is like blended here. So you can use PNG icons that you can download from Google and then you can use it. Another way is you can use SVG icons. So if you have a SVG code about your icon, you can add it on the image control and that way it will be visible on the screen. So you can add your own icons apart from the ones that are available here. The ones that are available here, they are also very good in terms of, using the basic icons on your screen. I can even add something like, if I add this check icon, I can even rotate it. So maybe rotate it by 60 degrees. So I get something a little different here. This way, you can customize these icons and then you can add it. So you can play with different icons and images on your screen to add your custom user experience. Then there are canvas components. So let's say I am working for an organization, and as part of that organization, I want to customize the controls, or I want to standardize the controls so that every app which is built under the name of my organization, it has the same maybe header and footer, or it has similar controls that it is going to use. So in that case, there is a uh, part inside Canvas app which exists for components. Components, it's like a reusable piece of control that you can place at multiple places on your screen and at or in different apps. There is also a concept of component library which allows you to publish these components to libraries, and any user who is building an app in your organization, they can make use of that component and they can import it. Because if I mean, based on my experience, usually every organization, they want to keep at least their header and footer as same. So you can add those as components and then they can be utilized. Let's try to build one header component here, and by mistake I added two, so I'll remove this one and I'll name it as header. Now the size, first let's say width is fine, but I don't need this much big header. I would go with 150, so this, or maybe 100, because that will look more like a header control on my application. Okay, then maybe I want a icon. So here I have this user icon, so I'll add it. So my user icon, it's added. Then I can add a label for the name of my application, or maybe something like this: the name of the application, the user's icon, and then a hamburger menu here. So yeah, this one. This is here. Okay. So now this is something very basic design I'm building here. Every organization, they may have a different, header design that they want to include. But here I'm going with this one. We can change its color to, or maybe I'll just change the background to black. Then this one, it will be white. And same goes for my label. So this one, the text color is also white. Okay, here I can say I want to add the screen name. But for that, I will need to add a property. We'll call it as header title. It's an input property and of type text. Okay. Now, if I want to add this header control, and one thing I missed, sorry. If I go back here, I did not reference it here. So I'll say the text I want to show on this label is header title. Okay. Then if I go back here and I do custom and I include my header here, see, this is added. Similarly, whatever number of screens I have, I'll add a couple more. And I'll call it as home. This one I'll call as my orders. And this one I'll call as create new order. So I'm just renaming these screens so that I can use it. Now in the header title, I'll say app dot active screen dot name. So here this will say home based on my screen name. Similarly, if I add my controls here on each screen, see the name of the screen, it's automatically adjusted. So here I have a component, and now if I want to make any changes to it, maybe like instead of this hamburger menu, I want to change it with a home icon, and I can search for it even because the list is long. So at times it may take some time. So here I can say, okay, now the home is displaying on every control. This gives me a sense of how the components can be useful in order to define the user interface of your application, because here now I can customize it, and this is a single object I can move from anywhere or any like from one place to another of my screen. So this is one way. Now, before we end our session for today, I do have a couple of miscellaneous items to cover. So one thing is, when you are, let's say, I have this kind of a scenario, few things to take care of. I am saying enter your name. Okay. Then I added a text input. Okay, which is fine. And then I said another button. Okay, so this is something I built, let's say, to capture the name of a person. But later I wanted to make it horizontal. So what I did is, here I reduce this height a little bit, and then I moved it here. Okay, so this is fine. Let's try to use it. Now, if I try to enter something here, I'm not able to. The reason is, the layers, when you're adding the controls, make sure they are aligned properly. I'll make it half here, and then I'll show you what happens. Now I can interact with my control, but if I try to interact with it from the left side, I'm not able to. So the controls are overlapping. See this overlapping space? This is restricting me to use my text input because my label is above that. When you're designing your Canvas app, make sure this doesn't happen, because that reduces the usability of your application. My user was supposed to enter a text here, but they can only enter if they are selecting it from the right side. No, that should not be the case. So always make sure that you are placing the controls in a way where it makes your app more usable. Another one I have is for design perspective. Now, in the icons, if you see, there are shapes towards the end. You can use these shapes to, build any design on your application. I'll show you a very small one. Like, I built this, and I want to make it like, a control with some shadow, and it looks hovered out like a block of uh, like a box on which I can write some information. So in that case, what I'm going to do is, this is my rectangle, and I'll copy this same here on rectangle 1. Sorry, on the other rectangle, I'll say the x of it is same as rectangle 1 dot x, so that it is aligned. Same for the y. I'll go rectangle 1 dot y width, rectangle 1 dot width plus 2, and for the height, dot height plus 2. So now if I see, I'll move this to the back. So send to back. Now this is in front and this one is in the back. I'll change the background color to something a little gray. So here if you see, now this looks like it has layers, and then I am using those layers. The shade I added here, it was a very light shade of gray. So what I'm going to do is I'll make it a little darker in shade. So see, now this is creating a small effect which makes my control looks more elevated. Similarly, if I go here and I want to make or adjust its height or width a little bit more, then I can do that. So see, now this is better. Instead of using this rectangle, if I use a button, I can even add the curved corners. So like for a button, if I scroll up, I have this cornered or this corner a little bit curved. So this is something I can add. Now, the benefit of adding these different properties here, X, Y, width and height. If I want to move this, sorry, I moved the wrong control. If I select this rectangle one, my main control, and I place it somewhere, see the shadow is following along. So wherever I add it, the shadow, it's going with my main control. So this is how you can add like small I mean, this is just one example. You can add any design on your Canvas app by following the same mechanism, by using different controls. It can be, text controls, it can be icons, it can be shapes, images, etc. Now, if I want to add something here, like maybe on the top to make it look like a heading, I can do that. So we can say, first I want to change its color to white. And I can say home. Make it center aligned, maybe make it bold, increase its font so that it looks like a menu item. Now, if I want to design maybe a home page with several of these and navigation to different screens, like one for home, one for create new order, one for like looking at my orders, I can use this kind of a design to build my Canvas app. And always remember, because you're controlling the design inside the Canvas app, it is very important that you take care of the controls in a way where the user experience you're creating for your users, it's usable and it's intuitive, so that your users can easily use the application you're building on Canvas app. Okay, so that was it from my side. If we have any questions on the chat, I can answer those. But if you would like to connect with me on LinkedIn, you can scan the QR code here. And then if there are any questions, please feel free to ask me anytime. Thank you. And let me check the chat 1 second. Okay, I don't see any questions on the chat right now, but if you have any questions for me, please feel free to reach out and I can help you with that. And that is our last session for today. We'll meet next month with the February meetup. Meanwhile, if you would like to present something in one of the user group meetups, or if you have something that you would like to share with the world, please feel free to reach out to either me or Yash, and we can plan something out. But thank you so much all for joining today. I hope you have a great weekend, and we'll talk later. Thank you so much. Have a great new year. Bye bye.